So with Ashveil releasing as a quote-unquote more sub DPS, I wanted to make a video talking about him and his role, especially for his future potential. Since a lot of people are definitely looking at him and kind of eyeballing him, not necessarily knowing what his role is outside of the fact that you can run him hyper carry. So in this video, I kind of wanted to be talking about his potential future role and what I do think, and also using some info that is going around. So let's talk about it. Stuck grinding in Honkai Star Rail? Need Stellar Jades fast? We've got you covered. Head over to U7 Buy, your ultimate gaming hub for save fast and cheap in-game top-ups. Whether it's Star Rail or your other favorite games, U7 delivers instantly and players love it. Check out their Trustpilot reviews, they're actually top ranked. On the Honkai Star Rail direct top-up page, you can recharge your account in seconds. For example, 8080 Honorific shards cost $99.99 in the official store, but on U7 Buy, you can see here it's way cheaper. Just pick your server, enter UID, pay securely, and boom, your account is instantly loaded. Want extra savings? Use code PRETSR at checkout for 5% off, perfect for last minute pulls, battle passes, or surprising a friend. And here's a bonus. If you spend $80 a month on U7 Buy, you can grab the Honkai Star Rail Express Pass for only 1 cent, which is nearly free. Click on the link in my description, recharge fast, save more, and keep blazing those trails. Alright, so I did say this video is going to be using some info that has been circulating around, so do take a lot of this with a grain of salt. It is a mix of that and also mixing in my own personal assumptions. So of course we want to talk about what has been circulating around, as it does kind of help you pick out what his role could be in the future. So of course, as we are going in 4.x, there is going to be a big focus around the Elation teams and how there's potentially going to be 2 main ones, one with Silverwolf, one with Evanescea, and then maybe one later that might be a mix and match, we'll see. But we do kind of have info suggesting that it's going to be like that. So it's kind of like not just having Mono Remembrance in 3.x, but actually having like a second one going on, kind of like that. It's also very likely that the entire flagship is going to be related to girls only, so you can practically just exclude Ashveil on that team. Since as we do know, you can kind of use Elation characters outside of not just mono Elation. A lot of characters work really well with them, like Sparksy's best main DPS team uses Sparkle. There's no Elation sustain, but that'll be covered in the future probably. So that is kind of like a sub out there. So we know Ashveil isn't really going to be a part of any Elation team. We can also kind of pinpoint the potential synergy, since in the 4.x potential reveals, or not potential reveals, but all the reveals that we did get of all characters, 2 of them were dudes, 1 of them was Ashveil, 1 of them was Blade SP. So that is just another kind of like official quote-unquote guess we can have, since the next info that has been going around that we want to talk about is how the team he's going to be on is most likely going to be related to a team with mainly boys. So that suggests that Blade probably would be a part of them, and how there is going to be one more release that most people are speculating and probably expecting to see, especially since we do have high IPC involvement, and that is the potential Aventuring SP. So one of the biggest, most assumed character and info going around kind of helps it, is assuming that one of the later half-plan Arcadia characters is going to be none other than an SP for Aventuring. And so the kind of team of mainly guys would be forming around that: Ashveil, Blade, and Aventuring. The reason I can definitely see that happening is mainly because when you look at IPC characters, all of them are follow-up centric. So even an SP of Aventuring, I can very much assume he's going to be a follow-up related character. Ashveil doesn't necessarily need follow-up characters, he does buff them the most with the crit damage dealt. But what he realistically needs is high frequency, and follow-up characters have some of, if not the highest frequency outside of someone like Aglia. So Aventuring being a follow-up character definitely can help with that. Then Blade himself, of course, this is like all info we can't really assume, since it'd be an SP and he could be working completely different, but we have existing Blade that has a follow-up attack, doesn't necessarily have insane frequency, but he just has +1 because of the follow-up attack. There is a chance that Blade might be another sub DPS slash amplifier, which might potentially be related to follow-up attacks, which gives him good frequency to charge Ashveil, which is one of the things he does want. He wants high frequency to 1, use up his follow-up attacks, and also 2, to mainly funnel him energy, since funneling him energy is really important for him to get his ult, do his best damage, and refresh his charges. Now you might be questioning why I am saying Ashveil more of a sub DPS. This is because it was kind of said for him to be a sub DPS with info, and we can also kind of go through what changes he did undergo in beta. As you see, he does have some insane debuffs in his base kit, like 40% defense shed by just bait existing, while having slightly on the lower side multipliers overall, and then also having the form of buffing allies by making them do increased crit damage. And then during his actual whole beta cycle, his multipliers were cut down by over half. If he was going to be a main DPS of his own team, it's very safe to assume that he would have had at least a good portion of those multipliers he had before they were changed. So it's very safe to assume that he was being changed to be more in line of a sub DPS. And a lot of his light cone and early vertical investment, and by early I mean E1, does also suggest it, with his signature making enemies take more damage with vulnerability and his E1 being entirely vulnerability centric. So going off the info that we do know that was said of him being a sub DPS, and then especially with all the stuff that happened in beta, the stuff he has on his light cone and investment, it's pretty safe to assume that that is going to be the case and he's going to be a sub DPS for a future team. Then you also might ask, why is he not really doing sub DPS stuff for this current team, so like the FUTUREPROOF team? It's not realistically impossible, but it's also not really said either. And FUTUREPROOF and Ashveil also can kind of be annoying to work together, where FUTUREPROOF kind of wants to attack the elite or bosses just so you can get as much damage in as well. And with Ashveil actually targeting the lower sided enemies, so like the ones with lower HP and the mobs, that can get really annoying. That probably wouldn't be a problem if he was actually made for FUTUREPROOF. FUTUREPROOF is also very dated. If she was to be the main carry with Ashveil, it would be safe to assume she would probably get buffed, and I highly doubt they're really focusing on her anymore, especially since, again, she is outdated. So it is most likely that Ashveil is going to be being released as a sub DPS in a future team. My guess is the future team is going to be an entirely, of course, related to the male side things, and I also personally hope that, because Blade, Aventurian, and Ashveil are all my favorite characters. I'm going to also guess that the team is going to be related to follow-up, so I definitely think it's going to be like a more modernized follow-up team where everyone is kind of doing damage. There's going to be maybe even a different sustain slot, or maybe one of them are going to be the sustain, who knows. But I do see it being like a future follow-up team that functions on the modern side, just to take use of Ashveil's kit, high frequency to funnel him energy, while Ashveil provides great buffs and debuffs to the enemies and his allies, just so he can make them do more damage. And then of course his damage contribution is really good. I think probably someone like Blade, or maybe even a future character we don't know about, is going to be able to provide more amp for the team, and they're just going to have a great synergy with each other with frequency, buffs slash debuffs, and also of course damage. So that's kind of how I do assume it's going to go for Ashveil. So we are kind of playing future real with this guy. For now, we mainly just run him on the existing FUTUREPROOF team if you want, or his better team where he's just a hyper carry right now, but I definitely think it's going to stray into the side of where he gets his own team, where he's going to be the sub DPS that has great synergy with multiple characters on the team, but they just have yet to be released. And that practically is it. Again, this is just going off info of what we do know and is circulating the internet, so take it with a grain of salt, as this can be a completely different answer, so it's mixing it between that and also my own personal assumptions, mainly basing it off the info we do know. Going off what Ashveil has in his kit, going off what happened in the beta, going off info we do know, none of this is actually confirmed, so take it with a grain of salt. But comment down below what you guys think is going to happen to Ashveil's role. Do you think he's going to get this team as well? Do you think he's just going to get kind of sidelined and then kind of just pick up scraps on teams? Feel free to discuss. If you found this video enjoyable or helpful, dropping a like would be greatly appreciated. If you're new to the channel or haven't done so already, be sure to subscribe and turn on the bell for future videos like this, along with all the types of style content, and I'll see you later. Peace out.